Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on this recording of the 2022 University of Nevada, Reno Summer Crawl. Today with us, we have Carol Bishop, who is in Northeast Clark County in Nevada, and she's associate professor and an extension educator, and she is going to take us through a workshop on money management. Carol, take it away.
Thank you so much. Right. All right. Oops. So I'm going to be talking to you about how to handle inflation and manage your money. So first of all, we want to talk about what is inflation. And it gets talked about a lot. And what it is when the value of a currency falls, and it's usually because they're printing more money, and the general level of prices is going up. So basically, your dollars are worth less and stuff costs more. So we've seen this a lot lately, and I'll give you some specific examples. And going along with this is something that I found out about. It's called the Contillion Effect, where some things are more expensive right now, and then because of that, it causes other things to be more expensive. And so why some things change quickly and some things change slowly is this Cantillon effect. So here is a chart of the inflation rates from 2012 to 2022. Now, what they recommend for a healthy economy is an inflation rate of about 2%. That's what the experts agree is kind of a good, safe number to have. And as you can see, we've mostly been below that for the last 10 years, except for 2021 and 2022. We are now at the highest inflation rate known in the last 40 years, and definitely higher than some of us have seen in our lifetime. And so some examples of this is the inflation rate increased. It's over-year inflation 8.3. Used cars. I don't know if any of you have tried to buy a used car or looked at used car prices lately, but according to this website that I've referenced, and on several of these slides, I have references at the bottom of them, and that's where I got my information from. So feel free to research these further and look at this. So it says over 22%. And why do you think that would be, Vicki? Why do you think used car prices have gone up so high? Because it's not a new product, so it's not causing more input costs. Why do you think that used car prices would go up?
Is it because the production of new vehicles went down?
I don't know that the production rate went down, but that is maybe part of it. But the cost has got escalated. And I know there's been some talk about, like for new trucks, for example, them not being able to get the parts that they need. So there is not as much of a market. And if you're looking at the difference between buying a new truck for now, what, about $50,000, or getting something used, with inflation rates, with you having less money to spend because you're having to spend it on other things, more people are looking at used cars. And I've experienced this personally. So if you have a used car that you want to get rid of, now would be the time to do that.
I've gone through this year too.
Yes. So according to the Labor Department, gas prices, this is as of March, are up 38%. So those gas prices going up cause every business that is associated with using petroleum products to increase as well. So, for example, shipping, transportation, mobile dog grooming. This is a quote from a lady who started Splish Splash Mobile Dog Grooming. And so she's had to raise prices to be able to cover the cost of her gas. But as she said, she's losing customers. Because when you raise prices, people that are already having trouble making ends meet, or they make choices about, do I really need this product or service? When they're trying to put food on the table, maybe your dog looking good or having their nails trimmed is not quite so important anymore. And so these are, this is information, like I said, from the Washington Post that I got. So feel free to, everybody has, there's a lot of sources that are talking about inflation and the things that it's causing. And then later on, we'll get towards some possible solutions. So then with regard to small business, this is a chart from Lendio. They said, here's a sample of some of the costs that have gone up. And so electricity, 9%, natural gas is way up. Paper products, that's crazy that paper products have gone up that high. Air travel costs, truck transportation, and I would say that costs have gone up even more than that, because this was ending in, this was for 2021. So I would say just in the last 6 months or 5 months of this year, that's gone even higher. And then along with the truck transportation costs, which is involved in almost everything we buy now. Think of all the things that we get delivered to our house from Amazon or other online services. And those all have delivery fees that are, if it's not part of the shipping costs directly, indirectly, you're paying for those costs in the cost of goods. So here's an example. Those are some examples of how they affect small business. So it's very easy to deal with inflation, right? You either get more money or buy less stuff or buy cheaper stuff. Sounds easy, right? Or not, maybe. But those, we're going to take those simple solutions and later on look at some ways that we can work with those. So let's start a little bit with personal finances. Do you know how much you spend monthly and on what? I have been keeping, because I am an economist and I love Excel spreadsheets. I know every dollar that I've spent since 2007. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I've spent them wisely, or it doesn't mean to say that I've made good decisions with that money, but at least I know where it's going. And if you don't know how much you're spending, there's certainly, it makes it more difficult to curtail your spending or to spend on things that are of more importance to you. So how can you change your numbers? You have to know what those numbers are to change them. So here's an example of somebody that would be living perhaps on one of the reservations because I've got a 0 rent on here, on a fixed income that only get $1,000 a month. As you can see, their most expensive outlays are their gas and electric, their groceries, and their car payments. But they also have a lot of other things that they have allocated money for. So gas and electric, you're not going to be, you can maybe reduce those costs a little by putting in LED bulbs, getting somebody to come out and do a lot of electric companies will do the free assessment, but that's not going to go down a whole lot. Phone, you can maybe change your phone plan. Groceries, on the other hand, are probably going up. I know that one of the things that I've done that I hadn't done in a long time, usually I just go into I feel pretty good about life. I just go into the grocery store, buy whatever I felt like eating. And that's the way I've been grocery shopping for the last few years. However, lately, with having to reduce costs, I'm back to the way I was when my kids were little. I'm looking to see what's on sale or on super special. I'm stocking up on those things. I'm also looking at coupons and or discounts that I hadn't done in a long time, and also keeping track of what I'm spending as I'm spending it at the grocery store, kind of keeping a running tally. Gas, we know, is going to go nowhere but up for a while. The car payment. You possibly could get your car payment refinanced, but this from then credit card 1 and credit 2. Now these could be revolving, but they're probably like me for a store or some other kind of high interest credit card. As you can see, credit 1 has a interest rate of 19.6, and credit card 2 has a interest rate of 26.99. Well, let's look at October. See, they had a balance of $2,000, and they're making $50 a month payments here. But then they have a $32 monthly fee if they buy nothing else on this credit card of $32. So they've really only reduced their capital that they owe by $18. This and credit card 2, while it's a lower amount, has a higher interest rate, so it's even less of a benefit there. So at the end of 3 months of payments, where they've paid out $225, they've only reduced their debt by $56 here and $43 here. So out of $250 in payments, they've reduced their debt by less than $110. So that's not a really good return. So sometimes you can, if it's not a store credit card, if it's just a revolving credit card, you could take this $500 that's owed on this credit card number 2 and switch it, add it to this one, which would give you a little bit better rate. But sometimes you can also consolidate these into a lower rate credit card, and that would save them over the long run quite a bit of money. Medicine, you're not going to be able to do much about. Gifts, maybe hand make stuff. A lot of people are doing handcrafted gifts, which are sometimes less expensive, sometimes not so much. Clothes, I am a thrift store person, so that could maybe be reduced. Grooming. I wouldn't recommend cutting your own hair. I have, but maybe if you have a friend or someone that is good to do, they can do it. Now, normally on a fixed income, I'd say, so that's how we can reduce these costs or change what we're doing somehow to make that less. This $1,000 fixed income, the government's not going to give you any, Social Security is not going to give you much of a raise, maybe a 2% or something. But a lot of the people in my community, there's quite a few that do sell things on the local Facebook site. And one of our most popular is a young lady that makes pies and she does very well. And she charges $20 a pie, and people line up to buy her pies. She is a Blue Ribbon Award winning at the county fair, so she's an excellent pie maker. But besides that, even in tough times, there's certain things that that people will purchase because it's a comfort thing. I mean, if you're not feeling good about the way your finances are, a piece of pie helps you feel better somehow. So there's people that are selling pies. There's people that are doing breads. And it's I've noticed even the price of my local baked goods in my store, they are now charging $6 for a dozen cookies. So if you know how to bake, or you know how you do a woodworking skill, or if there's something that you have that you know how to do that you can make a little money on the side, or as my kids and their friends call it, do a side hustle. There's opportunity to get more money. And then between getting more money and reducing your costs, that would help you be able to make your bills and have that $75 left over just to spend on goofy stuff. So as a business point of view, you need to know what your break even is. So Vicki, can you explain what a break even is? Do you know?
So to me, a break even is where the cost of doing business equals the profit of that business.
Right. So that you're not losing money on your business. Yes. What do you need to charge to be able to cover all your costs? And so one of the things that's exactly it. What do you need to get in revenue to offset those rising costs now? And we know that fuel's going up. So what else is going up? So here's an example of somebody that has 15 hens that sells eggs. Do you cut costs? Do you charge more, or do you have to do both to be able to make it break even? So bear with me a second. I'm going to, let's see. Slideshow. No, I don't want to black it out. Trying to switch to a different screen here so we can actually.
Okay, so hit stop share.
Okay, cool.
And now hit share again.
Okay, let me get rid
and choose your Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's an example of the egg budget. This person, so they were charging $6 a dozen eggs, and they were getting $5 for each of their call hens. These were their costs. They're paying themselves $13 an hour, so that's built in here. And so after paying themselves $13 an hour, they had net projected returns of $5.98. Well, that's good because anything above a zero, as long as you've accounted for your salary in there, is breaking even. So, however, we've had rising costs. So I went in this morning and looked, and these bags of feed that used to cost $18 are now costing $23 each. And these clear egg cartons that used from our old supplier that used to cost 35 cents a piece are now 66 cents a piece. So if we go down to the break even, we're now losing money on our business. So our choices are, we could pay ourselves less, but that's not going to be very beneficial, seeing as how all the other costs are going up for our personal costs as well. So this is the beauty of doing things on a spreadsheet and doing, this is called an enterprise budget. So you can go in and change these things to see what you would have to do to make it now work. If we raised our price of eggs to $7, are we now making, we're back to making money. I don't know that people will pay $7. Let's see if we can still make money at $6.50 a dozen. No, we can't. But maybe we get a different supplier for those egg cartons, because that's quite a big hit. And I found a different supplier that had a similar product. It's not as high quality, but it's similar. And this is where substituting works, at 55 cents. So now at 55 cents, we're just a little below. So maybe if we start charging $5.25 for our call hens, we're a little closer. Let's see, what else could we potentially cut here? Maybe we take a little bit of a hit on our money, or we'll just bring this up to $6.75. That sounds less than $7. And now we're back in the black. So that's an example of what can be done for a business. So another thing that I want to talk to you about is, this is an example of gas for an alfalfa operation. And this was from 2018, when gas was $3 a gallon. So at $3 a gallon for the equipment to use 6.5 gallons an hour. So it was $2,800 to fill the big on-farm fuel tank. Well, I would say if this gas is $3 a gallon, I'm thinking it's probably at least $6 a gallon or so for red dye gas. Vicki, yeah, she says yes. So that means that's doubled. So instead of $2,800, that's going to be $5,600. And you see our fuel costs totally were $6,500. See, that's too big. I have to make that bigger. And then this goes up from $3 a gallon to $6 a gallon for our trucks. So our fuel costs basically doubled. So that went from 6,000 and some change to 13,000 and some change. So with those increasing fuel costs, you're going to have to once again go in and find something in this that you can cut, or At this point, see, they were only charging 150 for their alfalfa hay. Well, easily 250 a ton or 300 a ton. I don't know what the market will bear, but you have to work with it. And then you can, and once you've done the break even, the advantage to that as well is that you can tell your suppliers, look, if you know that your costs, and you say, look, I've done it so where my cost, I know my break even, and I have to be able to charge this to make my bank. People are a lot more sympathetic than if you're just saying, oh, that's what I need. Okay. Open this, sorry. Okay, so are you seeing the previous slide, Vicki? The egg slide?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So there's also some out of the box helps that I found. These are suggestions from American Express. They suggest that you improve productivity. And so they're talking about quickly and efficiency employees work. That's more of a manufacturing thing, but you can, I think we can also apply this to using technologies and apps. So maybe out in the field, using something to where you're not putting on more fertilizer than you need to, that you're not using more water than you need to. Just something as simple as even a tune-up on a truck to help it get better gas mileage. So try to make sure that you have the maximum amount of productivity from whatever you're using. Also, they suggest that you stock up on supplies. So especially if you can find a good price on something that you use regularly. On a personal level, I try to eat not sugar, and so cereal is a no-brainer for me in the morning because I eat my breakfast at work. So plain old school Cheerios has a very low level of sugar. And a week ago when I went to the grocery store, they had a special to where it was only like $2.50 instead of $4.50. That's one of the things that's really gone up is cereal. It was only $2.50 for a box of Cheerios. So I bought 4 of them. You know, it's kind of, you know, I know that I will eat those throughout the month. So if you see something, especially that's on sale that you use regularly and it's able to be held, stock up and grab it. It says also to reconsider, consider renegotiating and buying large equipment, because the price is not going to go anything but up on probably on large equipment. And the other advantage of this is that if you're paying for it now, in 5 years, that $100,000 that you would have paid because of inflation, the value, not only will the price go up, but the value that you're paying, because you're paying with dollars that are worthless, you're actually getting more of a value by financing items. So if you're able to get financing, as crazy as it sounds, that is a potential help. So new customer says inflation automatically creates new customer segments. So go after them, because there's people looking to buy. Everybody's looking for a cheaper, a better, a more quality product. So you may be able to reach people that you could not reach before. I am looking like local. I'm in a small town. And so we have a lot of local people that are now advertising more locally because it's less expensive for me to hire that local person because people from Vegas or St. George don't want to come out because they're putting fuel surcharges for service people, for people to work on your home or to deliver. So there's that opportunity to reach out to a customer base that you may not have had before. And there's also some other suggestions on this American Express link. Prioritizing your most profitable products. You, once again, if you have that enterprise budget that you've worked out, so you know which of your products you're making the most money on, and then concentrate on those. An example that I gave was when I did a small farm budget, and he had mixed crops, but he was making money hand over fist on his garlic. I said, well, you could switch to all garlic and really make a killing. But he did not want to do that because that was not the customer base that he was serving. He was doing a CSA, so he wanted to give the people the whole produce package. But at least he knew where his profit was at. And if you do an enterprise budget, you then know what product that you're making is the most profitable, whether you're making more money on your hay or your cattle. That's something that you should know. Different rates of inflation for different inputs. So this was an example where a cost of one material was higher. So maybe like with the egg example, maybe you've been using paper cartons. Maybe it's less expensive to switch to the plastic, or with the high rate cost of petroleum, maybe you want to switch from the plastic to the paper. Consider something that will do the job, but with a cheaper input. And then once again, do the math on whatever is the least cost to produce what you're being sold. You don't want to scrimp on quality because that's going to lose you customers, but there are ways to substitute that will retain your quality while reducing your costs. And this is from Forbes, and they also have some other ideas. So are there Vicki or Shannon, do you have any questions for me?
I'm going to stop recording.